Kira and welcome back to another vlog. We're obviously still on our camping holiday, as we will be for the next 2 and a bit weeks, and we've just started the second leg of our trip, which is in Switzerland. So yesterday was pretty much just a complete travel day, although we did stop at one really cool thing, which was basically halfway through from France into Switzerland. We went to this place called St Leonard, which had a subterranean lake. So basically you go underground into this cave system and then you went on a boat and we're in this underground cave lake thing. And similar to when we went to the ice cave in Chamonix, it was just so bizarre because you're above ground and it is so swelteringly hot, like above 30 degrees. But then as soon as you go into the cave, it just becomes so much cooler, which is just so lovely. But also the place was just absolutely beautiful. There were some trout swimming in the lake as well, which was very cool. So that was a fun little stop off, and then we arrived at our campsite only to find out that we didn't realise that today was, or yesterday when we arrived, was a Swiss bank holiday. I believe it is literally called Swiss Day, and it is for the formation of Switzerland. So there were so many festivities at the campsite. Everyone had flags out and there were fireworks in the evening, and it was just really nice to arrive on a celebratory day. We got a good night's sleep after a very long day, or what felt like a long day of travel, and now we're ready for our first full day. So we are staying in a place just outside of Lugano, so we're right in the Italian border part of Switzerland. So today I think we're planning to just go and explore Lugano and see what the surroundings are like, and then one of our days here we're definitely going to do a day trip to Lake Como. And I think because we are right on a lake here on our campsite, we'll also probably just have some more chill days to do plenty of reading, which obviously leads me very nicely onto my reading update, because yesterday, being a long travel day, was the perfect day for getting on with some more reading of Game of Thrones. I am now on page 423 out of about 700 pages total, so I'm over halfway now and I am just devouring this book. Yesterday was such a great day for me because I pretty much just got to read Game of Thrones all day and I'm absolutely loving it. I feel like my reading experience of Game of Thrones last time around, I definitely had some preferences for characters, and I think it's also interesting to think about how what you know about the characters on the TV show and how you know that their storylines unfold influences how you feel about certain perspectives, when in reality you might not actually be that bothered about them if you're reading them there and then. For example, Tyrion, I feel is an interesting character to read about, but also his story at the beginning isn't my favourite story to read about, but because I know he's a very compelling character, it makes me more interested in reading his chapters and deciphering all of the hidden meanings and things behind what he's saying, and just sort of reading between the lines about his relationship with his family, because at this point you wouldn't necessarily know there is such tension between him and Cersei and Tywin, and yet that there's such closeness between him and Jaime. It's kind of hinted at that there's a little bit of animosity, but just nothing compared to what you know unfolds later on. So I feel it's interesting, obviously, reading a book like this, knowing a little bit more about how the characters unfold and what their relationships are, but also knowing that the books can be quite different than the TV show. So that's another thing that's quite interesting. I suppose another character where there is a bit of a, I suppose that the book definitely sets up a creepiness to this character, but also you know more about the character from the TV show, which is Peter Baelish, and I feel his introduction is certainly an uncomfortable one, and you get the impression from young Sansa and her perspective that she's a little bit uneasy with him, which I don't necessarily think comes across so much in the TV show. So just really enjoying it. I feel in both the TV show and the book, at least at this point in the story, I personally find Bran has a really interesting plot line, which ultimately goes quite drastically downhill, and I'm interested to see whether that is the case in the books as well as the TV show, because his story starts as quite an interesting one, but I think it just drags on so much in the show. But then one character who I find personally interesting all the way through is obviously Jon Snow, and I feel particularly at this point in his story, where he's so new to the Night's Watch and kind of getting settled in, this was a very compelling one to read, so I really do like his chapters. But all in all, I'm enjoying the whole thing, and I just can't wait to read more. So heading out to spend the day in Lugano. I think there's meant to be a market there today, so hoping we can maybe snatch up some cool things, or just have a fun time exploring, see what it's all about, and then fingers crossed we get back in time for a little bit of afternoon relaxation by the lake and some reading. So I'll catch up with you later on. like the fun part, well, there's plenty of fun parts, but one of the fun parts about doing this kind of holiday is that each campsite you go to kind of feels like you're on like a brand new holiday. And so obviously we were just in Chamonix, and that part of the holiday felt very like intense. Obviously we did a lot of hiking, and it seemed like that was the vibe of the overall area. Pretty much everyone who was there to do hiking, or there were some paragliders, people who were there like trail running, but all in all the vibe was like active. So people were like up early, out. The campsite was pretty chill because everyone was tired, whereas we've arrived here at this campsite and the vibe is definitely more like relaxed holiday. So we've just got a tent in our car, but loads of people here have got like mega camper van porch setups, like mega setups, loads of dogs and things like that. But the craziest thing that I've seen here so far is someone has actually brought their rabbit in a hutch, and it's just living in the porch area outside their camper van, which is definitely not on the bingo card of things that I thought I was going to see on this holiday. But all that to say, the vibe here is definitely more chill, so we've been just taking advantage of that and enjoying a lot more like lakeside relaxation, and it has been wonderful and also very helpful for getting through more of Game of Thrones, which I've just literally finished this evening right now, reading by the lake. As I said before, this is such a great introduction to the series. Really did enjoy it. I made it through, I think, 4 of the books before, although I don't know if the production or publication of them in England is slightly different. I know that Game of Thrones is exactly as it is, and so is A Clash of Kings, but then in the UK we have both A Storm of Swords and A Dance with Dragons are split into 2. So I've read both parts of A Storm of Swords, Steel and Snow, and A Storm of Swords, Blood and Gold, but I've not yet made it as far as A Feast for Crows. And I do think my one, I guess, like critique or qualm with Game of Thrones in general is that it's obviously a book series with loads of different character perspectives, which can be really interesting, but also there are times when George R.R. Martin does way bigger chapters or way more frequent perspectives for some of the characters, and if those are characters that you're not finding particularly interesting, so me for example, there was a few chapters towards the end of Tyrion in like a battle setting, and for me that is just a bit of a snoozer. So I think as the series goes on and as he favours certain perspectives and storylines more than others, it can get a little bit draining, but on the whole this was a really great book, and I'm so glad to have picked it up again. I definitely am going to be reading A Clash of Kings on this holiday, but I figured I might give myself like a brief interlude from high fantasy, so I'm going to pick up the one book that I've brought that isn't a high fantasy book, and that is Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. I mentioned this in my like summer reading list sort of video that I put up a couple of weeks ago, or it will have been like over a month ago by the time this goes out, but when I was deciding what to bring, I wanted to bring something that wasn't super high fantasy just to give me a bit of a break. And I've been seeing so many TikToks with a particular sound from the movie of Practical Magic, which just feels so like cozy and wholesome and heartwarming, and when I found out that it was a book, I decided to pick it up. So for anyone that doesn't know, it says, as children, sisters Gillian and Sally were forever outsiders in their small New England town, teased, taunted, shunned for the sense of magic that seemed to hang in the air around them. All Gillian and Sally ever wanted to do was to get away. Years later, tragedy brings the sisters back together. They'll find that no matter what else may happen, they'll always have each other. An enchanting tale of love, forgiveness and family, Practical Magic is one of Alice Hoffman's best-loved novels and the basis of the classic movie. So it's quite a short book, certainly by comparison to Game of Thrones anyway, just under 300 pages, and I thought that it might make a nice little break before I dive back into either the Game of Thrones series or one of my other fantasy books. I've also got A Court of Silver Flames and Iron Flame both with me to read as well, so hopefully this will be a nice little break from that. I'm excited to see what it does, because although I've heard a few sounds of it and seen a few clips on TikTok, I actually don't know much about the story whatsoever, so it should be a nice surprise. So with that said, this evening just chilling out by the lake, and then tomorrow is our last day in Switzerland, our last full day, and we're taking a trip not into Switzerland, we're actually going across the border into Italy, and tomorrow is going to be our Lake Como day, so it's probably going to be chill evening, ready to get up early and hit the ground running over to Italy tomorrow morning. He's going down on the beach. Ah! Wow. I feel like the last couple of days have absolutely flown by, largely because yesterday was a travel day and it literally just went by in the blink of an eye. We travelled from Switzerland over to Italy. We're just opposite Venice in the bay, and today is our Venice day, which I'm very excited about. But yesterday went very, very quickly. Lots of reading done, and I'm now on to my next book of the holiday, which is very exciting. It's a wonder though that I did actually get any reading done, because the car yesterday got up to 40 degrees Celsius while we were driving, and honestly at some points in the drive I just felt like I was just gonna either cook like a chicken or just completely wither away into nothingness because I was that hot. But we made it, so I can't complain too much. Obviously, as you know, I was reading Practical Magic when we got into the car yesterday, and I've given this one 3 stars. There were parts of the book that I liked, parts of it that just didn't really wow me so much, but overall I would say that the magic element of Practical Magic just was missing for me. I just wasn't really feeling the vibe that I was expecting from this book. I kind of for some reason thought that it was going to be a little bit more like a Gilmore Girls meets Halloween Town kind of vibe, and it just didn't have any of that like wholesome magic to it. I guess the only comparison I can draw to those like things that I expected from it is like in Halloween Town, the mum who doesn't want to be a witch anymore and has kind of like moved out into the normal world. That's kind of what the sisters of this book are a little bit like, but there's not really much embracing or explanation of the magic, and it is just a little bit like bitty, like the story jumps around a little bit, and I just felt like I was wanting more detail and just wanting a more wholesome overall magical vibe. But it wasn't a bad book by any stretch of the imagination, it just wasn't quite what I expected and hoped for. But then I moved back into the world of high fantasy, and now I'm reading Iron Flame, which is the sequel to Fourth Wing. Didn't read too much of this one because I only started this right towards the end of the trip and right when I felt like I was about to perish from heat exhaustion. But I am on page 48, and it's very much just like getting to the story set up and leading on from where we left off in Fourth Wing. But I love Fourth Wing, especially the like latter half of the book. I just became so obsessed, and when it got very dragony, and so this book is obviously picking up right where that one left off, so hopefully lots of dragons and lots of the excitement that we like sort of built up to in the second half of Fourth Wing. Obviously it's a huge book, so very excited to see where it goes. Won't be bringing this one out with me today though, because like I say, we're off to Venice. Hoping we can maybe find some cute bookshops in Venice, because I feel like there have to be some there. Other than that, just lots of sightseeing, fingers crossed lots of good food, and then I'll catch up with you later on. We're only here for today and then leaving tomorrow to go to Slovenia, so it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour through Italy. Just going to make the most of it and then catch up with you later. Like yesterday's weather was all over the place, but also incredible. It was actually probably the coolest day we've had on the holiday so far, which was very welcome just in general, because I feel like I'm just not made for this kind of heat, but also specifically because we were obviously spending the day in the city where I feel like temperatures always feel hotter, but it was, yeah, much cooler than it had been until the afternoon when we came out of an art gallery and it suddenly felt so humid. The sky went really dark, and then as you saw, we had the most incredible storm which really picked up the pace when we were on the ferry back from Venice over to our campsite. And it was just so bizarre because on the one side of us we had this like incredible red sunset, and then on the other side the sky was like completely black with thunder and lightning, and it was just so cool and I loved it. But yeah, Venice was such an incredible day, and I feel like probably might actually have been my favourite day of the trip so far, and a big surprise because I feel like me and Jay were not usually big city people, and like I enjoy a city if it's got stuff to do, but quite often we will like have a city on our itinerary and then turn up somewhere and be with like in a couple of hours like, well, I don't really get what we're going to do here, so then we just like cut the trip short. But Venice, we went on the very first ferry in the morning, the earliest one we could get. We went back on the latest one we could get back onto our campsite, and it was just such a fun day. The only downside being that I tried to go into St Mark's Basilica and ended up having to scurry around Venice trying to find somewhere to buy long trousers because apparently the dress that I was wearing was too short to go in. But aside from that little blip, the whole day was just incredible. Loved it and would definitely go back, and I thought that was a great way to finish off the Italy leg of our trip. And I'm now coming to you very hot and sweaty from our car because we've been driving all day and have arrived now in Slovenia for our next little destination. We're staying right on Lake Bled and it is just incredible. So now that we've arrived, we're literally just going to get in our swimming costumes and head straight down to the lake. I think we're going to rent a paddleboard and just have a little explore, enjoy the sunshine, and hopefully try and cool down in the water a little bit. But I figured I would bring this leg of the vlog to an end, and I'll catch up with you in a new one for Slovenia, Austria and Germany, which is the final little section of our trip. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.